Should we have a look at some of today's front pages on the papers? And the Telegraph leads with Rupert Murdoch's team telling Rishi Sunak not to quit over Partygate.
Makes you wonder who's running the country. And The Guardian reports on a mass campaign needed to uncurb unhealthy living.
And the Daily Mail leads with the Conservatives branding Labour's 20 miles an hour speed limits in Wales beyond insane.
Many people may agree. And The Times says Rishi Sunak is ready to phase out petrol and diesel cars on a strict time frame despite pressure to scale down net zero plans. That's a 2030 ban on all petrol and diesel cars. Madness.
OK, well, yes, indeed. Do let us know your views on any of those, actually. Joining us to go through some of the day's headlines and give their views, journalist and author Susan Holder and the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. And a very good morning. Nice to see you. Right, Kevin, let's talk about the XL bully dogs. You've been looking at the Mirror.
Yeah, so the Mirror have actually had a campaign on this for quite some time, so this is, I guess, a victory for them, but it's obviously come to a head with a lot of high-profile incidents involving these dogs. Sadly, one of the latest victim, a man called Ian Price, who'd been trying to protect his elderly mother from a couple of these dogs which had got loose from across the street and unfortunately lost his life. It was almost inevitable, I think, that Rishi Sunak was going to come out and say that these dogs have got to be banned. I mean, politically, he was under a lot of pressure. It appears on the face of it to be quite an easy win for the Prime Minister. It's not quite as cut and dried, though, I think.
It's going to be difficult. I don't know. What do you think of it, Susan? I think it's going to be very difficult for anyone to say what is and what is not an XL bully dog.
Yeah, and I remember I was talking to somebody yesterday who's a dog trainer who said that actually the banning of these kind of dogs, they tried to do that with pit bulls, and obviously we still have pit bulls. So it doesn't really work. So, I mean, I think cracking down on the breeding of it is a really good idea. Surely that must lessen the numbers out there. But sending anything underground is always a really big worry because the kind of people who like to have these dogs and who don't look after them responsibly are the kind of people who would quite happily go underground with it and make a bit of a thing of it.
And when you look at the numbers, I mean, they are 60% of all fatal dog attacks of this one breed alone, despite the fact they only make up 1% of the dog population. So there clearly is a problem. But another conversation, owners that are responsible. It's fair to say, Kev, that these dogs seem to attract a particular type of owner. You don't see many, how do we put it, hoodlums with chihuahuas, do you?
No, you're right, and...
if only that was a TikTok trend. If that was a TikTok trend that would take off, then we could do a lot of good that way, couldn't we?
Hoodlums with chihuahuas, hashtag.
And also, if you're banning them, what does that mean? You're going to insist that certain dogs are destroyed?
Well, exactly what I was going to say. Does this mean that once the ban comes in,
they can seize your dog,
the houses of people who have these dogs, take them off them to get them destroyed, even though the dog itself hasn't actually done anything wrong.
They're saying there's a grace period, but...
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means. I mean, the Prime Minister says that this new law will be brought in by the end of the year, which isn't far away, obviously. So I think there's quite a lot of detail to be...
The other thing that the Mirror have got that I hadn't seen before was that you're talking about nature and nurture, and is it, some of them might be OK. But actually it says here, half of all the XL bully dogs in Britain could be descended from one US male named Killer Kimbo. So it just shows that
that name's a bit of a giveaway.
But the gene pool is quite small, isn't it? There, so
and that's part of the problem, that this interbreeding, that narrow gene line means that any kind of defects, if you like, will be amplified across the whole population. Therefore, we see what we have has a problem. Susan, something that didn't bother me at all last night: insomnia. God, I could barely sleep last night. In fact, I did have insomnia. It was so hot. The first nightly pill for chronic insomnia in the Telegraph. That'd be great news.
Yes, so for anyone who does suffer with insomnia, and I know there are a lot of people, and you might be kind of watching us now because you haven't slept very well and you're up early because you haven't got much sleep. There's a nightly pill for chronic insomnia. You will have to demonstrate that this is something that kind of occurs very regularly over a certain period of time, like 3 months. But the difference with this pill, unlike the ones that are currently available, the ones that I've never taken sleeping tablets, but apparently can make you very groggy the next day. This one works the other way around. So instead of increasing what makes you sleepy to make you go to sleep, it blocks the chemicals that keep your body awake.
Wow.
So
it blocks the chemicals that keep you awake.
Yeah, so it works the opposite way. So there's two types of orexins, chemicals that help the body stay awake, and it stops those working too much. So so this drug is called, I think you say it, daridorexant. No, I can't say it. Daridorexant. I've written it phonetically and I still couldn't do it. Anyway, daridorexant, but it will be available privately and through the NHS. It's a new kind of way of dealing with that problem.
It does sound really useful, that. I mean, insomnia can be crippling for people who have it. It's completely debilitating.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I've never suffered from it, but I know people who have, and, you know, it's impossible eventually to get by on an hour, 2 hours sleep a night, and it can be completely crippling, as you say. It affects your daily life, it affects your home life, your work life. So, I mean, anything that can...
I think your sleep pattern is quite habitual as well, isn't it? If you get into a bad habit with your sleep, then sometimes you just need something to break that and get you back kind of regular. So it's not something that... But this apparently is something that you could take longer term if that was a real issue for you.
Yeah, people around here are obsessed with sleep, because everyone gets about 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And I find when I work on this show, I don't know if you're the same, man, but you get like a jet lag and you sort of still wake up at 3 in the morning for days and days afterwards. So insomnia can be a nightmare. Kev, a lot of people turn to alcohol to help them sleep. Neatly onto your next door on The Guardian. Charities and health campaigners having warning labels on alcohol and a hard-hitting TV campaign to scare us about the dangers of excessive drinking.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously this is something that for smoking has been in for quite some time. You see it on the packets. There were anti-smoking adverts. Not seen one for a little while, actually. But yeah, this is the World Cancer Research Fund saying that we need labels on alcohol and TV campaigns about it's not just alcohol, but unhealthy eating. So basically anything that you consume which can lead to cancer. They think there should be a much more high-profile advertising campaigns to really hammer home the message. And
it won't be like, you know, sort of diseased body parts, will it? Like you see on ciggy packets?
No, I think they're trying basically to do something about just trying to get us all... I mean, they're even considering bans on certain foods, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably gone a little bit too far. I mean, ultimately, it's up to individuals, isn't it?
Well, is it anymore?
As well as long as they have.
Because shouldn't we be, as they say, protecting the NHS? I mean, isn't it up to us, actually, to do something, to do everything we individually
Absolutely,
do?
yeah.
So, yeah.
But you should have all the information given to you. Say, well, look, if you eat 10 burgers a day, that's obviously going to do you some damage in the long term. So provide people with all this information, but ultimately they're the ones who have to make the final decision.
Well, you say that, but yes, and the decision is difficult if you're used to eating crisps and buy one get one free biscuits and goodness, with things we know are bad for us. Why not say to the manufacturers, stop making them? Well, I mean, it would be impossible, I suppose. That's why. But
well, that's the thing. I mean, it's difficult to police, and I mean, if the demand is there and they're going to make money out of it, they are going to make.
What's your take on this, Suze? Because, I mean, on the one hand, it's obviously, sensible. On the other hand, it's a bit nanny state,
Well, it is a bit nanny state. And I don't know how many people don't realise that smoking and drinking excessively is bad for you, but at the same time, I think if you are going to, I think you have to go kind of the middle way on it. So I wouldn't want, I certainly wouldn't want crisps banned. That seems a bit hard.
Okay, now we know.
But no, I think it should be available. But having those warnings, I mean. But then again, you still saw people smoking, even when those revolting adverts with tumours growing on the side of cigarettes. I can't understand personally why anyone would smoke anyway. But so if you do the same with drinking, some people will just are fatalistic about it.
But at the same point, the government is addicted to the tax they get off all of this stuff. So a lot less people smoke now, but it's like 20 quid for a packet of fags if you're not careful.
It's unbelievable. And while there's demand, people will make things. So
I mean, it's been effective, the anti-smoking stuff, because if you look at the numbers of people smoking, I mean, it's cratered.
But is that because of the adverts, or is that because it's so hard to find anywhere to smoke?
I think it's a combination.
Because you can't smoke inside, you can't smoke at work. They're actually looking at now possibly not allowing people to smoke in beer gardens or outside pubs. Well, I don't know how that's going to... That, to me, is just a threat to the pub trade, actually.
And the cost did put a lot of people off, but things like the minimum pricing on alcohol in Scotland had the opposite effect, didn't it? Like alcohol use went up. Yeah, that hasn't been as... I mean, it has worked to a certain extent, but I don't think it's been as effective as maybe they'd intended it to be, because ultimately, they are addictive substances as well, and if people enjoy it, it's all about a balance, isn't it? OK, it's expensive, but
I really like it or I really need it.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're willing to basically sacrifice other things like food, unfortunately.
Let's talk a little bit about Drew Barrymore,
Yes.
the actress, because she's been talking about the writers' strike, which is affecting not just those in Hollywood. It's come right to our country now, where because so many movies and TV shows are made here in Britain because of the writers' strike. A lot of people who work on those projects in Britain have suddenly found that there is no work for them. And Drew Barrymore has a talk show, I think, starting in about a week's time, and she sort of made a little video to explain why she is going to go ahead with her talk show without any writers. I don't know. Let's have a little look at what she said.
I believe there's nothing I can do or say in this moment to make it okay. I wanted to own a decision so that it wasn't a PR protected situation, and I would just take full responsibility for my actions. I know there's just nothing I can do that will make this okay for those it is not okay with. I fully accept that. I fully understand that. There are so many reasons why this is so complex. And I just want everyone to know my intentions have never been in a place to upset or hurt anyone. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
Oh, Drew.
You're not actually feeling that much sympathy,
I
are you?
love Drew Barrymore. I think she's brilliant.
Well, she was great in E.T.
But she is wonderful in the one she made about... Oh, I can't remember what it's called. It's a really weird one where she eats people.
Sounds great.
Oh, it's fab. I can't tell you how ridiculous and brilliant it is. I'll think of the name in a minute. But, no, she's lovely, but she's obviously upset because she's come under a barrage.
Yeah, she's had a backlash because she's gone ahead and
she's
broken
she's
the strike.
breaking a strike, really.
She has, and I mean, and as a writer, I do find it quite incredible that quite a lot of people who work even in TV or theatre or film don't ever really think about writers, and that's where the writers are striking and coming from, because people kind of... I've actually worked in theatre and people have said something about there's a script. I think people think actors just go on and make up the words.
Yeah. Some do.
It's like...
Which would be really impressive.
Yeah.
it would.
But then, on the other hand, Kev, call me a cynic. Didn't that seem like a bit of an Oscar-winning performance in itself?
No,
You know, take the makeup off, rub some onions in your eyes, look upset.
That's not fair. I rather like the fact she has a very ordinary kitchen.
Yeah.
I mean, it did seem genuine, but I would say, what did she expect?
Yeah.
You know, surely she must have realised that breaking the strike, and it's a very high-profile strike, and lots of, dare I say it, more famous actors and actresses than her are observing the strike by going ahead with her talk show. She seems to have been acting like she wasn't expecting this backlash, and it's
pretty
overwhelmed her,
inevitable.
so she has to apologise.
And I'm sure she is sincere. I think in this country, though, we find that kind of very over-the-top, overly sincere American kind of... We find that a bit kind of cringy. It's not the most cringy thing she's ever done, mind you. I think her falling to her knees in front of Dylan Mulvaney, the trans activist, when he was a guest on her show, I found... they were a guest on their show, I should say.
I don't know,
I found that even more cringeworthy than that. But I think we find that all that kind of...
I mean, you can't imagine a sort of coal miner in 1984 like, I really didn't mean to... You know what I mean? It just feels to me like so kind of saccharine and OTT, but I guess, hey, that's Hollywood.
No, but by the way, the series that she was in, where something strange happens to her and she ends up needing to eat people. And her husband...
Can happen to the best of us.
Her husband decides that, all right, well, they'll only eat nasty people, bad people.
Oh, well.
But they go back to looking
That's
for
all right,
nasty people. It's just so weird. It's called the Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh, OK.
And all I can say is it's on Netflix. It's absolutely brilliant. She is so funny.
Is that what you watch just to help you get to sleep before you have to get up early? That's your trick for insomnia.
It's a nice, relaxing programme about cannibalism. Yeah. Right, Susan, something that's really getting people going, net zero and the impact it's having on people's pockets. And a huge talking point is the phasing out, the outright banning of petrol and diesel vehicles by 2030. It doesn't look like the government's in any mood to back down on that.
It doesn't look like they're in a mood to back down. And 2030, it feels remarkably close to me, which is worrying. And the reason I think he's not backing down is because he does have to make a commitment to industry. So the industry are pushing him to kind of, he needs to kind of say one thing or another because they want a £600 million investment to build electric minis in Oxford rather than sending all the business to China. My worry with all of this, as everybody else's is, obviously, is that we don't have the infrastructure to support it. And at the moment, we need apparently 300,000 charge points. And at the moment, we have 44,000. So that's quite a big difference. And even if we had them and the wherewithal, where are we going to put them? It just seems to me like it's not... It's like everything else with... It's a great idea, but it's not been thought through. And I do think if we're going to do this, the improvement, such as it is going to make life very, very difficult. We're not going to be able to just set off and decide, we're going to have to strategise our journeys, think about where we're charging.
What are they calling it? Mileage anxiety or something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People in electric cars are really worried and they're having to do calculations about how to get there. And if you get there and find that the charging point isn't working, what the heck?
And I don't know whether they've thought of this as well. I mean, I don't want to play the kind of the gender card, but at the same time, I like driving. I drive around all the time on my own at night. It never occurs to me that I'm just going to be... I'm going to conk out in the middle of nowhere and be on my own and not know what to do. But actually, I think for women or anyone driving alone, actually, when you're travelling alone, that is quite a difficult thing you're going to have to deal with.
That's right. And Kevin, politically, this is fascinating because all the parties seem to agree with this, or at least nobody's outright coming out and saying, let's press pause or have a referendum or anything, sort of a vote on this. No. They're all for it, and the public must be scratching their heads thinking, well, who's on the side of the motorist?
Well, Conservative backbench, and there's a lot of them, are very unhappy about this. And I think they thought that they'd managed to get the Prime Minister into a place where he might push back that 2030 deadline. If you remember when the Conservatives won the Uxbridge by-election on an anti-ULEZ ticket, it looked as though the Prime Minister was starting to water down the Green pledges, including this one. So I think this is potentially going to cause him a lot of bother on his backbenches because a lot of MPs...
It doesn't mean, though, that he isn't going to back down. He's just not doing it now. They'll still do an 11th hour kind of turnaround because that's what happens with everything.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to have to leave it there for this hour, but you'll be back with us in the next hour. Thanks very much indeed.